Okay, I think we'll get started. So first of all, a big welcome to everyone who's joining our webinar today. My name is Laura Egan O'Brien. I'm the Marketing Manager for the College of Engineering and Architecture here in UCD. This is our third webinar of today of our virtual TalkRad webinar series. This is our Chemical and Bioprocess Engineering session. And we're going to focus in really on the student experience and the alumni journey. So to that end, we're going to have Cheryl Lim, who is a student of our Biopharmaceutical Engineering full-time program. And then we also have an alumni of the program as well, Sakshi, who's going to talk about her experience. And she's currently working for Sartorius Sedum Biotech. So she's going to talk a little bit about that in a little bit as well. And then we'll also be joined as well by Professor Barron, who's going to give us a very quick overview of the part-time version of the biopharmaceutical program and also our new professional certificate in manufacturing of cell and gene therapies and vaccines. And so it's an exciting new program. So he'll talk to us a little bit about that as well when he joins us. If you do want to join in the conversation, please do so by typing your questions in using the Q&A button, which is located in the control panel at the bottom of your screen. Type the questions in there as they come to you, and we'll get through as many of them as we can towards the end of the session. For those who are interested in the school in general, we have a number of programs within the school. I mentioned a couple of them already. So we have our kind of part-time and full-time version of our biopharmaceutical engineering program, that new program in professional certificate in manufacturing of cell and gene therapies and vaccines. And also then we have a one-year program in chemical engineering as well. So for those who want to get a bit of an overview of the programs in kind of general from a top level point of view, and also a little bit of insight into the school itself. Earlier in this year, last month, we had a number of webinars as well given by our academic heads of school to give you that kind of information on the top level of the schools and the programs available within those schools. So those particular sessions were recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel, which my colleague Katie, who's joining us as well, will pop a link to in the chat, and also the recording of today's session. So in case you miss anything, I'll also put the recordings from today up on that channel as well. And there's a couple of other things available on that channel as well, as far as testimonials, research videos. So there's a wealth of information there as well. So do make sure you check out our YouTube channel as well. It's lots of good information there as well. And then also just to highlight, I would have sent you the link to join the webinar today, yesterday or this morning. Within that email, you also would have got a link to our event landing page. So if you hadn't had a chance to check that out, I would encourage you to do so as well. You'll find brochures for our programs, a link to the UCD virtual campus tour, alumni showcases, and also academic research papers and impact case studies, and a lot of other information like that as well. So do check out our event landing page in that email I sent you yesterday or this morning. So without further ado, I think we'll get started. First up, we're going to have our current student, Cheryl. She's going to talk about her experience of what it's like to actually study with us here in UCD. So Cheryl, if you want to take over.
Thank you, Laura. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the introduction again, Laura. Like she was mentioning before, I am currently a full-time master's student enrolled in the biopharmaceutical engineering course. And well, a little bit about myself. I am from Singapore, and I did my undergrad back in Singapore, specializing in small molecular drugs in pharmaceutical engineering. And prior to my master's, I have 2 years of working experience in the biopharmaceutical industry, and relating whatever I've learned in class so far with what my experience was the past 2 years. Everything is very comprehensive in terms of what we're studying, and it also relates a lot back to what we actually do in the industry. So our modules and our courses are very relevant, and I would say it's very up to date, especially with the current pandemic situation evolving around us, with new technologies evolving as well. We're learning about all these new and exciting new ways to manufacture drugs, and the industry is booming in Ireland, and we are getting a lot of investments, and the job opportunities for foreigners like myself and also for the Irish are quite extensive, I would say. Right now, we're currently in our spring trimester, and I'm in the midst of all the assignments, and well, I would actually have to say that the assignments for the autumn trimesters are much more manageable than the spring trimester, but that's my personal experience. And if you're also thinking about working part-time as a master's student, that is actually very doable. I have multiple of my course mates who are working part-time and are studying as well. And the assignments and the due dates for those assignments are manageable because our professors have the understanding that we're mature students and we might need to fund our studies ourselves. And that's why we have these extra time to go out and find part-time positions to supplement our income and support ourselves during our studies. So all in all, I would say that my master's experience with UCD so far has been very enriching, and I am very excited to continue to see how much I can grow in this coming trimesters. Yeah.
Great, thanks so much, Cheryl. I think that was a great insight into your experience as a student, which our attendees will hopefully find really interesting. So we're going to move on now to our alumni speaker. Sakshi, if you want to introduce yourself and talk a bit about your experience of doing the biopharmaceutical engineering masters and also your career journey so far.
Yeah, hey, so thank you so much, Laura, for inviting. And I can start with a little introduction of myself. So my name is Sakshi Manuja, and currently I'm the key account manager for Sartorius Stadium, Ireland. So a little bit about Sartorius is that we're innovative partners for biopharmaceutical industry and manufacturing companies. So my day-to-day would be being involved in the relationship building in the business with biopharmaceutical companies in Ireland, like Pfizer, AbbVie, BMS, all of the key accounts, key customers we would have in Ireland. Again, the Ireland is a big biopharmaceutical industry. All top companies are based in Ireland, so that makes it very lucrative for this particular course. I graduated in 2019 from the Masters in Engineering in Biopharmaceutical Engineering, and I believe, as Cheryl mentioned, that the course is designed as such that completely translates to the industry. All of the courses, they're deep dive into upstream, downstream, and facility design, and it gives you a whole holistic view and also detailed idea about how to manufacture biopharmaceuticals from the vial to fill and finish. So yeah, I think the degree really prepared me for my role today. My role is business side, but I also need to understand the whole process and understand what my customer is doing, which it helps. Yeah.
Great, thanks so much, Sakshi. If anyone has any questions, please do feel free to type them in using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get through as many of them as we can, as I said, towards the end. We are also joined by Professor Niall Barron, who is going to give us a bit of an overview of specifically the part-time program in biopharmaceutical engineering, but also the new program, as I mentioned at the start, the professional certificate in manufacturing of cell and gene therapies and vaccines. So Niall, if you're okay, you can introduce yourself and give us a bit of an overview of the programs.
Hi, thanks, Laura. So yes, I'm Niall Barron, as Laura said there. I'm a member of academic staff in the School of Chemical and Bioprocess Engineering in UCD, but I'm also a principal investigator in NIBRT, which you can see there behind me. And NIBRT is the National Institute for Bioprocess Research and Training, and I'll say a little bit more about that as I go through the two programs that Laura mentioned. So I'm just going to share my screen now for 1 second. Okay, so first of all, just to look at the let me see, so I'm getting some options up here. Okay, so just to look at the context for why we believe the master's program initially, this part-time master's in biopharmaceutical manufacturing is particularly relevant to individuals working in this sector, and any of those who are working in it or indeed are aspiring to work in it. You will know that this is a really active area in Ireland. You can see there on the slide all the different sites around the country where we have large multinationals, many of them American, but global companies really, many of them very familiar names, who have been manufacturing here predominantly over the last 20 years. We've seen a real boom in this sector. So the top 10, if not 12 pharma companies in the world have some form of activity here in the manufacturing space. And it's important to note is we're really focused on manufacturing here, not discovery or kind of early stage research. This is about making biological medicines. So 75 companies overall with 23 manufacturing sites, as you can see there. The investment is significant, as you can see. So capital investment, essentially the money put in to build these really advanced manufacturing facilities, has been significant again over the last kind of 15 or 16 years. Now employing more than 30,000 people, and probably twice or three times as many as that in peripheral services related to this sector. So really important sector. You can see the money there in terms of exports, critical to the Irish economy overall, and been very, I guess, important, particularly during COVID and indeed during the economic crash at the end of the end of the last decade. So, ongoing activity in this area as well. We were worried for some time that perhaps the investment wouldn't continue, but it has, and we have new facilities opening all the time, and indeed existing facilities expanding. So it's a really important sector and a really high value sector in Ireland. So the program that we offer then in UCD is a part-time program. Obviously, we also have a full-time program on the same topic. You can see there, the part-time program is together in 2006, so running for over 15 years now, and more recently than the full-time program, which runs over 1 year as opposed to the 2 years for the part-time program. The part-time program we kind of hived off as a standalone program then in September 2019 for the simple reason that we needed to respond to the requirements of people who were attending the course. And really it's focused at people, as I say, who are already working. So individuals, even if they're not necessarily in this sector, but are typically already working. It's delivered in cooperation with NIBRT. So NIBRT, as I mentioned earlier on, is an IDA facility which was set up about 15 or 16 years ago to address the needs of these companies that were starting to come into Ireland at the time. So NIBRT, in collaboration with many of the other universities and institutes of technology, delivers all sorts of different training programs and indeed are involved in research into this area. So this program is delivered in association with experts in NIBRT, as well as other industry experts who deliver particular modules, because they're the people who are at the coalface every day and we feel can deliver the best education to those within the course. So over 300 graduates so far, and all of them employed, if not nationally, many have moved on to international roles. So it's really suitable for those with a science and engineering graduate background, at least. We generally look for people with a level 8, so kind of an honours bachelor's degree in one of those kind of in a discipline related to science or engineering. But I would say that we're not exclusive about that. So because we're dealing often with people who've been in the industry for many years, they may not actually have the kind of standard requirements, but they have what we'd refer to as kind of industrial or experiential offerings that they can bring, and therefore we'll often take on people like that. So it's more of a case-by-case basis, and there's more detail about that on the website. I jumped past. So very briefly, I won't go through these in detail, but just to look at the kind of expertise you could expect to have at the end of the 2-year program. Biotechnology, it's really to address those with a diverse background, as I indicated already. So it covers everything from basic biology, so understanding the cells that underpin manufacturing of complex proteins, and indeed the cells themselves as products or medicines. So you have animal cell culture, you have biotechnology, covered by myself and my colleague in UCD, Professor Susan McDonald. We've covered Lean Six Sigma as well, so manufacturing processes. That's from an external consultant who's an expert in the area. And then we cover all the elements of the manufacturing stream, so upstream, downstream, fill finish. So some of these terms may or may not be familiar to you, but they're all integral to the process of manufacturing these advanced medicines. So you can see there, 3 modules happen in the first semester, so that would run in the autumn time in year 1, and then after Christmas in year 1 you have the other 3 modules. So you accumulate 5 credits for each module, 15 credits per semester and 30 credits per year. Interestingly then, you'll see at the bottom, during usually March of the second semester in first year, you'll attend NIBRT to do practical experiments and learning over the period of a week to gain hands-on experience with some of the facilities that you would see out in the manufacturing workplace. Second year then is again covering different elements of things like facility design, the analytics that are important to these sciences, and then regulation, obviously highly regulated area, scale up and tech transfer really integral as well to moving things from research into the manufacturing setting. And then finally, what brings it up to master's standard, a 3-month project that typically you will do with your employer, but using academic supervision from either myself or one of my colleagues in UCD. So the program runs over the 2 years. It typically happens on a Friday afternoon between 3 and 6. So in front of you, you're looking at essentially 4 12-week blocks plus the master's thesis it happens in the final summer of second year. And just finally, maybe to mention then, often because of the types of students who come on this course, we do accept what we call recognition for prior learning, or RPL. So that could be where you have already completed, very similar modules, or often is the case, again, because the student cohort is you have, already achieved almost expert status in one of the elements that I mentioned there in the list of modules. So I think I'll pause there, Laura, for a second if you wanted to jump in. I'm going to move on next to the cell and gene therapy program, but maybe just a pause there if I wanted to cover anything else, or you wanted me to cover anything else.
No, I think that's fine, Niall. I think that gave a really great overview of the particular program. So if you want to talk about the professional certificate as well, and then we'll make time for questions then after. Sure.
Okay, great. Thanks, Laura. So I guess maybe moving on to what you might think about as the next phase of medicines. Everything I described really around the master's program is kind of focused on Ireland's main manufacturing base, which is focused on the production of recombinant proteins. So using proteins as medicines, the most common type of those being monoclonal antibodies. However, in recent years, there's been growing excitement and interest, both clinically and commercially, in the new novel medicines known as cell and gene therapies, or sometimes referred to as ATMPs, depending on where you're looking. But cell and gene therapies probably sums it up best. Even more recently, most of us will be aware of the novel vaccines that have come out around to address the pandemic, in particular mRNA vaccines. So this course is designed to describe the methodologies in manufacturing these entities. So how do you manufacture a cell as a therapy to inject it into patients? How do you create gene therapies? Usually they're delivered by viruses, but they can be delivered in other methodologies. How do you manufacture them safely and effectively so that they can be distributed for administration to patients? And equally then some of the challenges around these novel vaccines. So most of us are probably familiar with the challenges of initially the cold chain supply for mRNA vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna. So because of the huge manufacturing base I described earlier, we believe Ireland is uniquely sort of poised and positioned to attract huge investment by those same companies in many cases, but also some newer companies that are very active in this space to come to Ireland to do their manufacturing because of the the 30,000-40,000 people already working in the space. And the reason is that a lot of the technologies are similar to what you use for recombinant protein production. Therefore, we're at a high enough bar already. So this offering is designed to kind of allow people perhaps already working in the industry I described to kind of prepare themselves and upskill themselves to be ready for this new opportunity when these manufacturing operations start to come to Ireland. And really, we believe that in having that kind of skill set in Ireland will really be of great benefit to the country, not just to the students who attend the course. So again, just to look at some of the content and the delivery, I should add that as a professional certificate, this is a less onerous undertaking than the 2 years part-time masters. It runs over a period of 3 months starting this September, so the 12 weeks leading into Christmas. And again, we'll run on Friday afternoons between 2 and 6 in recognition of the fact that we expect most of the people to attend to be working individuals themselves, and recognizing that they have busy lifestyles. Therefore, it's designed to help them achieve the 3 modules which are listed there over the 12-week period. Equally, the various assessments and assignments that are used to validate your learning, I guess, during the course of the certificate are designed to keep in mind the fact that we're dealing with people who are working full time. So we've kind of flexibility built in that way. Also, in terms of flexibility, while this will be delivered face-to-face in UCD, we're also intending to offer it as an online program as well, again in recognition of the fact that there are sites all over the country, and sometimes it's not that convenient for individuals who might like to join the course to travel to Dublin every Friday afternoon, albeit over a 3-month period. So it will be available online. Very briefly then, just to touch on the content, the first 2 modules listed at the top there, cell therapy technologies and processing, will really give individuals who already have a reasonable understanding of recombinant protein production an opportunity to understand the nuances and the manufacturing workflows that both are common and different to standard protein manufacturing. So how do you go about growing and formulating a cell as a therapy? Perhaps you have to take it from a patient in the first place, modify it in some way, expand it, and then inject it back into patients. Gene therapy and vaccine technologies, again, will look at all the basics around manufacturing. First of all, what are they? Describing what they are, the advances in the field, and then the workflow going from the beginning to the end of the manufacturing process and formulation for delivery into patients. And then finally, the GMP manufacturing of advanced therapeutics will look really at kind of different case studies, and all of these will be delivered by individuals from industry who are working specific in that field. So overall, the program, similar to the Masters, will be delivered by both UCD and NIBRD experts, but that particular module will be made up of approximately 8 individual case studies. And finally, there'll be an opportunity similar to the Masters to come in and visit the NIBRD facility and see some of the unit operations that are specific to the delivery of these exciting new therapies. And I think that is it. Yes, Laura, I'm done.
Great, thank you so much, Niall. I think that was a very quick whistle-stop tour of both programs, but I think it's enough for our attendees to get a sense of what the programs have to offer, and the kind of course content I think is particularly important for maybe people who are coming from a professional setting and having to try and manage work and doing the course as well. So I think it's really important for them to be able to see that. So I might just invite our alum and our students to Sakshi and Cheryl to turn their cameras back on, and we might get through some questions. And I know, thank you to you both. I know you've been answering some of the questions as we've been going through the session, so I appreciate that. We might just go through them again, just for anyone who didn't kind of have a look or didn't get a chance, or maybe they relate to more than one person. So someone was asking about the inputs on the job prospects after doing the biopharmaceutical engineering program for a person with less than 1 year's experience, and possibly, do companies accept people who don't have experience before they've done the master's? So Sakshi, if you want to expand on your answer that you gave to that particular attendee, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I just added that we have graduate programs in Ireland, which are, open for people who are just out of masters or graduation, and a good 1 or 2 years of experience is something which people look for process engineers and process scientists roles, but it's not really necessary because there's a lot of expansion happening in Ireland. We have loads of companies opening up their manufacturing plants now. We have Eli Lilly announced their production in Limerick. I'm based in Limerick, so that's how my hand just pointed out there. But so a lot of people would appreciate whatever experience you have. We still have a lot of job prospects.
Brilliant. And then also just to stick with yourself, what are some of the skills that you would see in industry that might be required of students after they've completed the Masters in Biopharmaceutical Engineering?
Because I personally moved to a business/technical role, my skill set would be different, but I think for engineering, Six Sigma is one thing which is introduced in our course already, which is helpful skill to have becoming the process engineer if you're looking for those roles. And as Niall has introduced, the course is in conjunction with NIBRT, so a good overview of the industry you get at NIBRT. So I think you're pretty equipped by the time you go in the industry.
Could I?
Yeah,
Sorry, Laura, to interrupt. Maybe I just add to that. This not so much kind of around the courses on offer, but maybe just to add to that comment. Right at this moment in time, the employer market is really, really tight. There are absolutely huge opportunities there for people even with limited experience. I might give NIBRT a shameless plug also in saying that there's a jobs fair on the 23rd of April in Cherrywood. You'll see details of it online if you look up the NIBRT site. But I think there are 20 or 22 different companies will be there desperately looking to hire graduates with the kind of skill sets that this master's provides, and indeed even an earlier stage. So I think anyone who's out there looking for work in this sector at the moment is in really good shape. But adding to your experience by gaining extra qualifications as you go along can really boost probably your promotion prospects once you do land that job eventually. So yeah.
Brilliant. And then Niall, just sticking with yourself, what are some of the types of backgrounds you're looking for within these programs? Like what kind of undergraduate programs or bachelor level programs or professionals are you looking for within these programs?
So typically we'd look for people pretty broadly within kind of the STEM subjects, so science and engineering type backgrounds, because that will, otherwise it can be quite challenging to kind of keep up to speed with some of the content. But there have been instances in the past where, again, we have people with sort of have been in related industries for a period of time. So perhaps they've worked in the computer industry or some other kind of manufacturing industry where they're dealing in not quite GMP, but clean room facilities. And that kind of brings them to a level that they may be able to handle the content. But generally speaking, a science or technology background would be beneficial to help you kind of get through the course without too much sort of extra reading and effort.
Okay, great. And then someone was just asking specifically around that, Niall, someone from a hospital setting. They haven't said their particular bachelor background, but do you think they're trying to switch up into the biopharmaceutical industry? This is the kind of master they should be looking at?
Yeah, yes. Again, I'm going to assume someone from a hospital background is perhaps coming from more the lab side than the maybe being a nurse or a doctor. That wouldn't completely preclude them, but I'd say it would be more challenging for maybe someone coming from a nursing background, for example. But if you're coming from a lab, a hospital med lab, you probably have at least maybe a diploma or degree and maybe enough experience with biological assays and so on to have the ability to kind of take this on without putting yourself under excessive pressure. But again, it's very much, I'd encourage anyone who's unsure as to whether they meet the criteria just to reach out in person, and we're happy to have a conversation, try and give people the best indications to whether they'd be capable of it or whether it would be beneficial to them or not.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think that's good for attendees to know. Cheryl, I might just come to you real quick. I know you answered one of the questions in the chat. Someone was asking about doing kind of part-time work as well as their studies and how they're able to manage their time. And do you feel that that's a possibility for students?
Yeah, that's actually a very feasible possible. It's yeah, a lot of my classmates they do part-time jobs, especially during our breaks during the week, because our schedule is crafted such that there are 2 days in a week that it's just fully for our self-study, for us to find jobs and like work and pretty much just do whatever we want, because it's a master's and the ownership on yourself as a learner is such that you have to be able to support yourself and also be responsible enough to study for your certificate at the end. And so the jobs that most of my friends are looking for or are working as, they are mostly in like the retail jobs. So like they will be cashiers, or they work in the food industry. If you want like relevant experience, you can reach out to your professors to ask them if they have any space in their labs, and I'm pretty sure that they'll be happy to help out, depending on the restrictions during the time, of course. And yeah, so the schedule wise, it's pretty manageable for a master's program, I would say.
Great, thanks, Cheryl. And just stick with you real quick. I just might ask you another question. For obviously you're an international student, you've come to Ireland to specifically pursue study. Did you find the transition was okay, or do you have any advice for students who are making that transition from an international country to study with us?
Well, the transition for me was pretty all right, because English was my first language, so there wasn't like a language barrier over there. For like in terms of transiting from industry back to studying, it was quite a bit of a challenge at the beginning, because I had to get back into the momentum of studying, planning for my revision, and that sort of mentality had to be kind of like drilled into me for the first couple of weeks. Yeah, but other than that, I think if you're finding it challenging to transition back into school, or just starting up in school, there are many counseling facilities in UCD that they provide, and you can, I know that I know of some of my classmates who have actually reached out to and used some of this avenues to talk about how they can cope with stress, and how they can manage their finances even. And I feel that that's very helpful for mature students like us.
Great, thank you very much, Cheryl. And then there was just a question that Niall, I think you were saying you might answer around possibly a stage 3 engineer, undergraduate engineer from UCD, who is looking to maybe pursue the biopharmaceutical engineering, but that's not the natural feeder route. If you wanted to give more insight into that.
Yeah, so there's nothing to stop someone who's graduated, with a BE. I mean, candidates like that would be ideal to go into this course, but you would have had to obviously complete it. I'm not sure I understood exactly whether the question was, are they in 3rd year now, or about to complete 4th year? Because you could apply.
Yeah, I think it's because if they're in 3rd year, naturally most of our students go on to do the ME program, so that this student would most likely most of our classmates will be doing the ME, the Masters in Engineering in Chemical and Bioprocess Engineering.
Yeah, so I guess the answer is that you could certainly go on to do the full-time Masters in Engineering Science if you so wish, instead of the ME. If the part-time one is really kind of more designed for people who are already working. So if you anticipated that you were going into the workforce, but also wanted to start a master's program in September, then by all means, you'd be entitled to apply for it. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Perfect, thank you, Niall. And then also you were in the middle of, I think, answering a question around online training programs within NIBR for maybe as part of postgraduate studies.
Yeah, so for people who perhaps feel that they're maybe a little bit below the level of being ready for the masters, there are lots of offerings out there. NIBR even if you go, you'll see free offerings there, for the NIBRD Online Academy, to give you a flavour of the space, and then you can make a decision whether you want to sign up for smaller, more succinct courses. And there are also things like government-run initiatives like Springboard, which kind of allows people maybe from different sectors. So someone mentioned the hospital background there. It gives them an opportunity to undertake training that kind of transitions them into the biopharma industrial world, and that might be a good foundation before taking on something at level 9.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Niall. And then Sakshi, I might just go to you, just as obviously an international student who came to us and now is working in Ireland. Do you find that the landscape in Ireland is a good space for people securing jobs post qualification as an international student specifically?
Especially in Ireland, in terms of biopharmaceuticals, I think it's a pretty great space for international students. They're very welcoming. And also, to answer your previous question about the change when you come to Ireland, I think UCD has a lot of programs and helps. We had a buddy program where you would just pair up with somebody who would introduce Ireland to you and introduce the culture to you, so that helped. And after masters, you definitely have a lot of job prospects in the industry, and they are very welcoming for international students as well. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Niall, just want to touch with yourself around, is any of these programs that we've mentioned at master's level tied to an accreditation or professional body?
It's the MNGSC are not. No, the ME in UCD is to ICME and Engineers Ireland, but not the master's programs. Sure.
So if a current undergraduate student is going on to the ME program, they would be, but not for the one-year programs.
Exactly.
Okay, great. I think we just have one or two more questions. I think it was someone asking you around part-time jobs available in the pharmaceutical industry near UCD. So what I would say is, if you're coming here on a student visa, you are legally allowed to work 20 hours a week during term, 40 hours a week outside term. So that is a possibility. And if you yourself are coming with a good experience, I mean, there is possibilities of getting part-time jobs within industry as well, but it's something that you'd have to explore, I suppose, once you come to us in Ireland. You can lean on your program director and your module coordinators to help you kind of in that respect. So yes, you are legally allowed to work, and it would obviously depend on your background, whether you could find work in industry or whether it would be more specific part-time work that Cheryl was kind of talking about earlier on. Katie, I'll just go to you just in case there was any questions that we missed off that you were given privately.
Yeah, just someone asking, I know NIBRD was mentioned quite a few times. And someone is just wondering, they know a lot of the academic sessions are delivered in NIBRD for the part-time program. And I think that's usually on a Friday afternoon, but for the full-time students, do they get much exposure in NIBRD?
Do you want me to take that?
Yeah, that would be great.
So the part-timers, pre-COVID, the Friday sessions were actually held in NIBRD, in training rooms in NIBRD, and obviously the practical sessions that are referred to in March are held in NIBRD as well. But the full-time students attend lectures in UCD, but they do have the practical session in NIBRD as well for the hands-on work.
Brilliant. So they get to use those facilities. And just a question for Cheryl from someone. They're just wondering, where do you see your future career as an international student and the industry in Ireland? I suppose when you finish your masters, have you kind of thought about that? Have you started looking? And what are you thinking, if you don't mind answering that?
Yeah. Okay. So my future career in Ireland is pretty fluid, but I just got an email from my professor, actually, just got an email that I'll be working with him for the research summer trimester. So going into his project, I would be doing a PhD for the next 4 years. So that will be my career set for the next 4 years. And after
congratulations.
My PhD,
Congratulations.
So maybe after the 4 years, I'll definitely look into the either academics or industry, because I'm still leaning towards applying the research that I'll be doing to the industry. So there are definitely pharmaceutical companies out there that are trying to help to transition whatever we have in the labs into the industry, and like all these new tech developments will definitely be useful for the future of biomanufacturing.
Okay, so well, firstly, congratulations, and then secondly, obviously, the next 4 years of your career you see in research and PhD before potentially moving into industry. That's correct.
Yep, that's right.
That's fantastic. We'll certainly follow your career with interest. That's all the questions that I've received in, Laura.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Katie. I think there was just 2 more open questions we have before we finish up the session here today. Someone's just asking around, does doing online courses, maybe particularly with NIBRT, have any weight on being set to the masters? What I would say is, if for the full-time programs, what's weighted most is your bachelor degree and your performance in your bachelor degree. That's what we will take most into account. We'll also look at personal statements and references and things like that, and any experience that you do have, but your performance in your undergraduate, your bachelor's program is the most important thing. For the part-time biopharmaceutical program and the professional certificate, they will take into account any work experience that you have. So I would make sure you just include all the information as part of your application, so the admissions team can look at you as a full application when you're applying. And then Niall, just back to you. I think there's one more question on, is there any summer internships or any things like that within NIBRT that could help someone improve their knowledge base and their skill base?
There isn't a formal internship program in NIBRT, but we kind of do it on an ad hoc basis sometimes. Without going into the structure of NIBRT, it's not a million miles away from a department in a university, as in there are professors or PIs with research groups, and depending on whether they have slots available within their labs, they may take on people for periods of 6 to 12 weeks, maybe for some experience, but it's more on an ad hoc basis than anything formalized.
Okay, great. And then last question for you, Niall, is if someone's doing one of the courses with us, is there opportunities at NIBRT for being a research assistant or teaching assistants or anything like that?
Again, there's nothing automatic from it. I mean, NIBRT, like any, I guess, in company, has hiring and goes through the process of advertising jobs. So there's no automatic route in there, but certainly if somebody is applying for an open position at NIBRT and they've already completed a program that has made them very familiar with it, perhaps that could be advantageous. But yeah, there's no formal link between the two, I guess is the short answer.
Sure. Okay. Thank you very much, Niall, and thank you to Cheryl and to Sakshi and to Katie, my colleague, for participating in the webinar today. I think we've reached the end. I think we've answered all our open questions. So thank you very much to all our attendees for tuning in and getting involved with the Q&A. Thank you for tuning in. What I will say is just make sure you check out the Eventbrite or the event landing page for all the additional information I mentioned at the start of the session. Check out our YouTube channel, which my colleague Katie put the link to for this particular recording of the session, but also a lot of other information available as well, and testimonials and things. And then also my colleague Katie has popped her email address and my email address in the chat as well. So make sure you grab that. If you didn't get a chance to ask a question today, or you have something that comes up later in the future and want to reach out, please do. Or if you're going to make an application to us and need some support as far as what you need and getting that processed, you can reach out to us as well. And we're more than happy to answer your questions via email or set up a one-to-one Zoom call as well if that's required. So again, thank you to everyone for tuning in and enjoy the rest of your day.